Welcome to the Jungle Brothers podcast. It's Joey here, and I want to kick today off with a little apology to you. We're one episode behind. I was planning to release one episode right before Christmas, but I actually got hit with COVID, and it wasn't too bad an experience for me. I was quite thankful. Had a few days where a bit of muscle soreness, pretty bad sore throat. However, it did disrupt me releasing the podcast on that final week of the year when I had planned to, and I didn't. So that is the episode you guys are going to hear today. The run on then into the New Year period and holiday period was great. I was always going to take a couple of weeks off on the show. I guess I planned to tell you guys that in that last episode, and I didn't. So I'm telling you retroactively, and I hope you can appreciate it. In any case, we are back. It is early January. This episode was a chat between Paul, Dylan, and myself on why we're so shit at recovery. And it was really posing the question to the guys, like, why do we all suck at it? And we all suck in our own unique ways. And I thought that it would be a really cool thing for you to hear us talk about some of the obstacles that we face with our own training recovery. It's obviously something that is really important to training. We harp on about it all the time. And you would expect that three guys who are working full-time in the fitness game would have all of those ducks in a row, but we don't always. So hopefully you get a little bit of, good feels out of this about hearing us struggle, but also some good takeaways because we do go into what we do well with recovery and how we do optimize it for ourselves. So let's get into it. Happy New Year, and please enjoy this first episode. Good to have you back. We are live. Welcome to the show. I'm Joey.
I'm Dills.
I'm Paul, your man.
How are you guys?
Yeah, very good, very good.
All good, G.
I gotta not ask you questions posed to both of you because you guys are sharing a mic. Could result in you guys kissing.
Yeah, that hasn't happened since the Christmas party.
We didn't actually do a recap of the Christmas party. It's been, what's it been, 2 or 3 weeks now since?
2 weeks?
Yeah,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Give me a little, for the folks who are listening who maybe didn't come, give us a rundown of the agenda of the night.
We had kicked off at 3 p.m. down at One Drop, early start. That was so we could get everyone down. If anyone wanted to bring the kids down, they could come and spend a little bit of time down there. And we got the slow trickle, people arriving from 3 to 5. Then we went into the speeches and some special announcements at about, I think it was, 5:30? 6:30. Time went quick. So then we did a speech, a bit of a recap of the year, talk through everything that we'd been through the year, and did some acknowledgement to some of the members, some of the special peeps out there.
It's like a grading day in jiu-jitsu. Everyone shows up because they're like, I want to get shouted out today.
Yep.
But instead of having acai afterwards, we all drank cocktails and champagne.
Oh,
Till 5 a.m.
Paulie, that was, I think, the first exchange you and I had at One Drop was you were like, man, I just stumbled on this awesome combination, a glass of champagne in one hand and the beer slushy in the other, and you sip the slushy and then drink the champagne. And then you got it. You remember that? And then you got me a bottle and then of champagne, and then poured a glass, and
Yes.
we're doing
It was the combo, and the head brewer, Nick, who I coach, I told him about the combo, and he was like, man, and he's a Willy Wonka for this shit. And he was like, man, I'm going to try that. That actually sounds like it matches really well. And I think listeners probably think a beer slushy, because it was the first time I'd had anything like that. It's not really beer slushied up.
You wouldn't, if you
It's
drank
actually-
it, you wouldn't realize.
No, it was like a dragon fruit slushy.
It's like an alcoholic
With
slushy.
alcohol.
Alcohol, yeah, but I thought it would be like really weird to have something like that. But the alcohol taste is really subdued. It's like a sweet slushy. And anyway, it was delish.
Yeah, to fuck you up because I'm sure it's strong like most of the things there,
Yeah.
but you don't realize.
Yeah, they're deceptively sweet until you're like, oh shit, 8%, 10%.
Yeah,
Fucking end up on the floor the next morning. Why am I so cooked?
making out with your mate. The fuck happened, bro?
But it was an epic party. We had the dress up theme, and pretty much that was the big visual component. Everyone was out with their costumes. A night at the circus was the theme, with the idea that everything had to be borrowed or from an op shop, so there was no items to be bought. And yeah, the circus theme, the costumes were the big story, really, like they always are. And yeah, everyone had some outrageous outfits on, hilarious.
Fucking awesome outfits, like always.
Yeah.
I was talking to a group of people there. It was the one sales conversation I had that night. I think I was on my way back from the bathroom, and the guy's like, "You Freddie Mercury?" And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm actually Roy of Siegfried and Roy, but let's have a chat about the outfit. And so it was two guys and their two wives. And they're like, who's Siegfried and Roy? And I started telling, and they're like, what are you guys anyway? And I said, we're from a gym. And they're like, man, your people go to town. They're like, everyone looks so good. They're like, I don't know what it is. It must be all your coaches or something. I was like, no, that's all our members. I'm like, there's like 8 coaches here, but the rest of them are members. And they're like, you got to be kidding me.
Dude, that was the common theme across the night. People were like, whoa, what's with all the costumes? And like the one drop stuff, just people having a drink. And then when I said, oh, we're a gym, they're like, no, you're not. Like, no one's going to put this much effort in for their gym Christmas party. What do you actually do? And I'm like, well, we're a gym, but we're a little bit different. Yeah, it was awesome.
What time do you guys wrap up?
I did 3, and Paulie was the last man standing.
I wasn't alone. I was here at 5. I was basically just babysitting because the after party was here at the gym. Just making sure everything was okay, you know?
Couple of issues?
No, there wasn't really, but just that was my excuse as to why I was the last man standing. But yeah, we came back for the after party, which was a ripper, and we had Dan Sester on the wheels with Connor, playing some music. We had the Petrol Panther. Shouts. What cunt?
That show flew by.
Mate, yeah. Well, it's
I was
quick.
pretty lit at the time.
It's pretty punchy, but awesome fire entertainer. So he's a fire breather, but he also swallows it, swings short swords of fire, does backflips, and
tricking.
Eminem lyrics as well, which was like pretty
Unexpected.
fun.
Unexpected. And he had that like dodgy little speaker, which was so funny. It was like tinny, yeah.
Kicked off singing "Welcome to the Jungle."
That's right.
It was it was perfect for the night.
It's all coming back.
Yeah.
That was an experience. And yeah, so we kicked on, got back here, as Paulie said. One Drop hooked us up, so we were drinking One Drop bevies all night. They really took care of us on the night.
That's
so
our
shout out
local
there.
brewery for anyone that's not familiar. They're just around the corner and they do some amazing stuff. They hooked us up some beers.
Yes, they did. They kept us all fairly intoxicated for the whole night. So
I remember, I don't know, shortly before I left, it was probably about 2 a.m. I was like chatting with someone like, go on, let's get a beer. We'll get one last beer. And we went to the Ice Box, which is, we're going to be talking about the Ice Box today. And we went to the Ice Box and it was like, a skerrick of beers like left floating in there. I'm like, oh, what have we got? And I put, and all that was left were like these IPAs that were like 10%. And it was just, at that end of the night, I was like, that's fucking disgusting. Get it away from me. Like, I couldn't, it was too strong. That was a mad success. I loved it. Well done.
thank you.
The first Christmas party that you guys planned exclusively.
Yeah, and we had some big shoes to fill. Mr. Tiora Ward has renownedly put on some, we obviously with you boys helping, but put on some very big and standouty Christmas parties over the years.
Yeah, he did. You could say he led the charge.
Yeah. Especially after last year. Holy hell. What a one to try and back up to the point where we decided it's not going to be doable to do something on the same scale. Let's just do something a little bit more intimate.
Yeah, last year was truly exceptional.
Yeah.
That was the Burning Man event. 2 to 3 days camping away, like in the bush. Yeah, I'm sure people listening have seen it. If you haven't, go to the Instagram either at Jungle Brothers Movement or the Jungle Alliance, and you'll see some pictures from that. That was a wild event.
Yeah, I just think, you know what though? I think that if we tried to do that again after the year that everyone's had, everyone would have just been too cooked.
Yeah,
it was better to concentrate all our energy into one friggin' really special night than trying to recreate something that only happened because of an exceptional year the year before.
Mm. Now, we are opening this chat before because, Dills, you there was a couple of developments in the gym over COVID lockdown. Yep. But one of them was you're doing, and you wanted to get an ice bath going.
Mm.
And we've ended up with an ice bath that's embedded in the front deck of the gym. It looks fucking spectacular. It's cold. And when we're talking about before we jumped on the show, we were talking about recovery, and then both of you guys were like alluded to the fact that like you don't do a great job of recovery yourself, and I was like, yeah, me neither. Like it's the we owned up to like it's the one thing where we all kind of tend to fuck up.
It's the unattainable.
Yeah, and I guess for anyone that's in for anyone that's into their training and pushing the limits. And that might be jiu-jitsu, it might be weightlifting, it might be coming and training at our gym. Chances are you're probably burning, the candle a little bit too much at both ends. and you're probably not getting as much recovery as you need.
Yep.
Fair to say?
Yeah, very fair to say. Very fair to say. I think especially if you've got like something like a business that you're running as well, and then on top of that you're trying to get in your own personal development. Yeah, it's gonna be tough to try and balance that with getting enough sleep, eating right all the time, doing all the little extra things you need to do to keep yourself feeling good.
Could we get well, we've done this before with you, but haven't done it for a while. Tell me what your guys' training load looks like at the moment. Good for folks listening, like, how much training you doing? What's a week look like?
At the moment, I'm pretty much down to 3 2-hour sessions a week. And they're not like particularly loaded 2 hours. It's kind of a slow burner. But that's 3 times a week. In the mornings, it's bodyweight training pretty much. There's a bit of mobility. And right now we're doing some skill work just coming into December. But yeah, that's what it is. 7 till 9, 3 times a week.
Yeah, okay.
In between, I might get some stretching done. Haven't really been able to, just because it's been so busy, to do, the striking part or even the lift that I was doing once a week. It's just kind of fell off, but that's my staple at the moment.
And you got the odd sport
Like
thing or something, but that's sporadic, like basketball last night.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Dilzos?
Dude, I'm at the other end of the spectrum at the moment. I'm training 3 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Jesus.
I'm on that Edo grind.
He's on that young Joey grind.
He's juggling for 4 hours of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally juggling, not with juggling balls.
3 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
And right. And then you're also coaching in the mornings, doing PT.
Yeah.
Trying to run this biz.
It's pretty intense at the moment. And I definitely don't think it's sustainable long term, right? I set myself a goal of a year of doing this style of training. And look, I think I've gotten heaps out of it, but I've also hit a point, and I was having a talk with Paul about this, and I've talked to a few other people about it lately, where I think it's time to cut it down a bit and just fine tune my training a bit.
So you're doing online programming with Ido Portal.
Yep.
Can you trim that? Can you trim that back with him, or is it like that's what it is?
You can pick the hours, so they let you pick between 2 to 6 hours a day, and then you pick topics, but you only have a set amount of topics you can pick based on the amount of hours that you're willing to put in, right?
Okay. That's
so
cool.
Let's say I'm doing 1 hour away, maybe I can only pick 3 topics for the week. If I'm doing my 4 hours a day, I've got, I think, 7 topics.
Right.
And topics is so people know what I'm talking about. You've got your strength, you've got locomotion, you've got handstands and equilibrium, so flexibility, object manipulation, juggling, all those sorts of things.
Right. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I have a theory as to why his training program is so demanding, and I'm gonna detail it for you right now.
Awesome.
I think that he identified that his greatest threats in the fitness industry wouldn't be able to build their own businesses if they were too busy training all the time. So he designed a training program that disallowed them from doing absolutely anything else.
Well, let's just put it this way. It's lucky that I've already locked down my partner and I'm not looking for a girlfriend, because I'd have no freaking chance of meeting anybody on top of everything that I'm already doing, right?
Dates are not an option with a training schedule like that.
When you said you were thinking it might be time to cut it down, you said a year you'd like to do it. How long has it been already? Are you close to a year?
I'm just on the last 3 months of my year. So I've done it for 9 months.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, like I said, I've actually made substantial growth in most of the areas. So if anyone was thinking of doing it, I would very much recommend it, but just know that you're going to be taking on a big workload, and only do it if you can fit it in and make it workable for you.
Yeah, right. Mate, fascinating. Do you, Paulie, I get the impression that you want to dial up with what you're doing coming into next year? At the moment, you're not doing as much as you'd like to be? Is that kind of the... Or are you nah, three 2-hour sessions is good, actually?
I'd like to do more. Yeah. I mean, you always want to do more, don't you?
I suppose, yeah.
Because I'm not really doing any of the martial arts stuff that I'd like to do. And I've already committed. I'm coming back to jits. I'll be on the mats tonight for the grading.
Oh.
And then January, I'll make it a regular thing. It'll just be the one session.
We're going to roll tonight.
Are we?
Well, I guess I'm going to be there too.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Call me out, then I have to listen to a black belt.
That's right.
Anyone higher than you? It's like, yes.
That's right.
Yeah, so there's that and the striking. I have to think about it. This Christmas, I'm not sure what my plans are for training next year. Played this basketball game last night and I was talking to you guys and typical me, it's in my head. I'm like, fuck, I'm joining this team. I need to learn how to smoke these guys. Got these guys running past me. I'm like, yeah, it was a lot of fun. So anyway, yeah, I always want to do more. I can while I'm young.
Yeah, sometimes too many options is a curse, isn't it? I've been doing, what have I been doing lately? I've been doing 2 jiu-jitsu classes a week, which are anywhere from 90 minutes to 2.5 hours. If I get a double class, it's 2.5 hours, but it's usually 90 minutes lately because it's been pretty busy. 2 of those, and then I get like 2 90-minute strength and mobility sessions with the Bulletproof guys. And then that's kind of it. Sometimes I might get a third kind of strength session. But since getting my black belt, I decided I wanted to do a third jiu-jitsu class each week. And I did one here at Jungle Brothers this week, which is fucking awesome. I've wanted to for ages. And I think that's where my third session will be. I've wanted to get back into the JITS program here for a long time.
Sick.
Yeah. But it's funny, I think back to like when I used to train, follow Ito's program, similar amount that you're doing, Dills. I don't know if I didn't do that much. It was probably, it was 3 to 4 hours, I guess, a day, but yeah, 6 days a week. But it's fucking changed so much. And that's not even because I had a kid. It's just, I think you get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't want to spend that much time on my training.
Well, also you're more efficient, right? And it might hurt me a little bit to say this, but you're a better mover than I am, right? Like you can do the same movements with less effort, right? So you're going to get through a ring session a lot quicker than I am, and you won't necessarily have to do the same volume to get the same results.
Yeah,
so I think that'll play
yeah.
a part in it too, right? Like if I'm doing muscle ups, I'm training a muscle up by itself. You can train it as part of your ring routine and get your other components in at the same time.
It's true. But, that's just, I mean, yeah, I maybe I do have a bit more, mobility comes a bit easier. I think that's really what it comes down to, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like with the muscle up and stuff, it was really more that when I started training with Ito, I already had a muscle up. So then it was like, oh, well, we moved to step 2, which is, whatever, shoulder stands and fucking planches and shit. And that's kind of how it is, right? It's kind of wherever you jump in on the timeline, okay, you're just going to do a shitload of that thing to get you to the next step. And
yeah, true.
But so it's fascinating that 3 guys that work in fitness kind of run this gym, struggle with their recovery. Now, for folks, and I guess we're telling people this because this would easily be the most significant cause of people not making the gains they want in their training. For high achievers anyway, for people who are training a lot, the number one thing that they probably aren't doing is recovering well enough in order to maximize their returns from the time spent training. And that's kind of the relationship between the two, is that you can do a shitload of training, but if your recovery's out of whack, you're not going to get the results that you wanted, or at least not get them as fast as you could have. Separate faction of people are those that just don't train enough. Then it's like, all right, we need to do more training. But what is that? And I know, like we talk, like you ran the recovery seminar here this year, Dills. Yep. I'm sure you guys talk to all of your one-to-one clients about it. Like, how's your sleep? How's your recovery? And it's always like trying to help them like optimize around that area. Why is it that we struggle to get enough sleep, get enough downtime in order to maximize this?
I think it's up to the kind of individual and what's going on in their life and what their highest priorities are at the time and what they're chasing. And when I look at the 3 of us as an example, well, definitely for me and you at the moment, I'd say business is a high priority for us. You're like 50-50, right? You're doing freaking Dylan basically dives into everything and does it 100%. So you're quite similar. Like business is, we're trying to upskill on business big time as well as train. Whereas, so it comes down to priorities, you know what I mean? So we're trying to squeeze probably too much, and we could probably admit it, into our weeks, because we've got some goals and some really high aspirations that we want to hit in the next few years. So we're kind of in a period where we're chasing that.
Yeah.
So that's a factor, I'd say. Definitely for me, that's probably it. I could probably like I probably do less in the week, and you know, there's only so many hours in that week, and not lending enough to that recovery portion, whether it's sleep or chill out time, etc. Just filling those gaps up with, you know, other things are also a priority. They're all kind of vying for my top of the priority attention list.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's a good point, but I think expectations play a big part in it for me as well. Whereas like with my workload, I've got the expectations of everyone else around me in the business that I've got to try and meet as well. With my workout and my training, I've got a coach that's guiding me and I've got to meet his expectations, as well as like the standard that I believe I need to be hitting to be a good coach. But with my recovery, I'm the only one I'm accountable to, if that makes sense, right? So it's like, okay, I'm accountable for this. These other things, I've got other people who are going to keep me up and make sure that I'm hitting my goals. With this other one, it's just me, so it takes a bit of a backseat.
That's an interesting way to look at it. So maybe there's a space there for a recovery coach.
Yeah.
Who like programs. Oh, that would actually be quite cool. Well, I suppose that, you know, and I totally agree with what both of you said. If I think about it, the main thing for my recovery is that I don't sleep enough. And it's always been the case. I've never slept enough. And I don't know what that is. Ever since I was a kid, I just didn't want to go to bed. I wanted to stay up. But then when you get into fitness game and that kind of thing and being productive and whatever, you don't want to get up late. Like, it's fair, like go to bed a bit later, but then theoretically you should wake up a bit later. But if you're like, no, I got to get up and get cracking with the day, it means you go to bed late and you wake up early, and that's where the problem lies, doesn't it? You're kind of chronically undersleeping, which is what a lot of folks do. A lot of PTs do because it's early starts in the fitness game.
That's my thing as well. Pretty much the sleep thing, and when I do feel like I'm losing the recovery battle, then I will basically just go to that. That's my lowest hanging fruit, and I know I grew up where I didn't have bedtimes, and I had a really bad sleep hygiene in my household. It didn't matter where I was sleeping. I'd sleep in the lounge room, bedroom, someone else's bed, because we had 8 kids. So I've always had really bad sleep hygiene where you'd fall asleep in front of a TV and that sort of thing. And it wasn't until I, moved in with Tash, and for years she'd go to bed, and I always tell people that she'd go to bed, switch off the light, and like tuck herself in. Like, I'm going to bed. I used to think that was the strangest thing for like 3 years. At first, strange. She just decided to go to bed. Where I'm like, what? I'll just lie here and fall asleep in front of the TV and crawl into the bed later. So I just came up with a bad hygiene, just as a little backstory. But yeah, sleep is the one. And I've found also since having kids, often when they go to bed, that's your only free time that you have. So you tend to just draw it out a little bit. Like, the house is quiet and everyone's asleep. It's like, I'm going to take this 90 minutes, which draws right into the bad hours, as we know.
Yeah, that I'm experiencing that one a lot, and it's like, and it might seem okay. You're like, oh, I can do 90 minutes and still maybe get to bed by 10:30. What I always fucking forget is that my son gets up at between 6 and 7. Yeah, so you're like, well, I got the 90 minutes, but I just robbed myself, and now I got to get up at, maybe I don't have to get up till 7:30, but he's up at 6, and you're like, oh, I fucked up. Yeah, it's amazing how just on that specific example, you can be at the beginning of the day, you wake up and you're tired and you're like, oh my God, I need to focus on my sleep for a few days. I'm really underslept right now. And you crawl through the day and you get through it, and then you get to the night, and then you finish dinner, and then you've washed up, and then you're like, let's chuck something on Netflix. And you're like, for somehow that great motivation that you had to go to bed early just dissipates as you approach the evening.
You lose 60 minutes just trying to figure out what to watch, though.
Dude, that's why I've been so deep on YouTube lately, right? Because it's 10-minute content instead of having to pick a show.
Yeah, but it's 40 of them.
Nah,
it's one clip. Suggested viewing. No, you find it's better because you're not.
Yeah, because I can't I can't watch, and also because I only get an hour of TV time a day, if that. It's okay, well, I'm just going to
doesn't let you have any more than that?
No, not allowed. No. Well, because I'm here 5 to 5 most days, right? I get home and I try to be in bed by 8 p.m., but then you got to shower, eat dinner, all that stuff on top of it. So it doesn't leave me with that whole amount of time left. So either we're watching a show together that's an hour long, or I'm watching a couple of YouTube videos, because then I can stop at any point and just go to bed.
Yeah, right. It's can you guys identify with this? I've always found it strange when I meet someone who's like who openly declares that they just can't function unless they get 8 hours. Those people are like, oh no, I'm in bed by like 8 o'clock and I'm not up till like 7 in the morning. I just can't function unless I get 8 or 9 or 10 hours. And I'm always like, what the fuck? Like, how does that, like, I think you're just being, like, my instinct is like, you're just being lazy. Like, of course you can get by. I do it every day. But that's almost when you're meeting someone who is incredibly in touch with maybe their recovery.
Yep.
And has, whether or not it's been constructed, but they have like really good sleep habits. Like when I think about it now, I'm actually quite jealous of these folks. If you're listening, I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm always envious, and I also suspect that some people are lying. So I'm like, that's not possible, is it? I'm far too curious. Doesn't matter how tired I am. When I get to the end of the night, there's always something that I want to read. I'm like, there's other things that I'm always trying to fit in that I need to satisfy that before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Whatever I'm reading or learning about, that always gets me. And I wonder, like, how can you go to work, have dinner, have a shower, then just go to bed? I guess, yeah, I don't know. There's too many things that interest me, I think.
Well, it's funny you
I
say
struggle
that,
with it.
right? Because like when I was working an office job, no issue, right? Because my work, and maybe this is the case for some people, maybe it's not. My work was 9 to 5 at the office. I'm there until there, and I switch off when I leave. I don't have to worry about anything. In doing my own business and running like my own business now, right? It's not 9 to 5. It's okay. Maybe I'm just going to answer this one email. Maybe I'm going to do this as well, right? So that definitely has an effect on my sleep as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a parallel there between that and the training thing. And it's like if you are working for somebody else, then your job is just like this one thing that you do, and it's contained in those hours, and you go there and it's just your job and you get it done, and then you go back to your life. Whereas, and that could be similar to, say, the person that does like 3 F45 classes a week, and training is I go to F45 and that's it. And there's no other consideration around it. It's contained and it's simplified, versus our training where it's like you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, Thai boxing, try and do some weightlifting, got to get that handstand. Where's your mobility at? Like, you're trying to address so many different factors. And it's the same with your work. With your work, it's like, I've got to get better at sales and marketing. Oh man, my leadership skills are dropping off. I need to read a book on organizational prowess. Like it's just this constant drive. And I think I know for you, there's a lot of curiosity there. Like, how can I get better at managing a team? And like, a lot of that curiosity and development goes back to you wanting to be a better performer at work.
So true. I was just thinking we should do the thing where you go into your YouTube history and then let's like read out the last 3 videos.
Okay.
Maybe not. Like, what did I watch last night?
I cleared my history yesterday.
Yeah, wink, wink.
That's good.
Because we were doing that thing where and it's tough with the Insta search. In the office with Marco, or at any one time, you'd ask someone, show us your phone, show us your Insta history, your Insta search. And you know how it has
Insta search?
When you go to search on Insta, it has a grid that's constantly scrolling down, but you can see above the fold that there's like 15 squares.
Yep.
And it was just to have a laugh at what those suggestions are.
Because it's reflective of what you've been looking
at. Exactly. And I don't know, if you're a male, there's always girls in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're in fitness, and it doesn't matter whether you are or aren't looking at them. There's someone in there all the time, and it's just a laugh. Check your friends out next time, listeners.
Absolutely.
That's so good.
Tell me, so sleep is obviously a thing, and I guess people listening can kind of pick up that it's a constant like work in progress. It is for me. I'm always trying to get better at it, and every time I'm writing in my journal, I'm talking about, this week I'm gonna like do better at sleeping, and I'm always looking for little solutions and hacks and whatever. That was largely what drew me to get a Whoop. a Whoop band, which, you know, for anyone who's not familiar, it's like a wearable that tracks a bunch of health data, just like a Fitbit does, or, you know, an Oura Ring or any of those things. You boys also both had a Whoop. Paul and I spoke about it on the show once. I now no longer wear it, and I see that you two guys are no longer wearing it either. The Whoop for me was really about getting more sleep. What drew you guys to it?
Yeah, recovery as well.
Same shit?
It was recovery, and it was, in a sense, overtraining because I was upping my training load. And look, to be honest, it did pay off. I found that I was sleeping better when I had it because I like to gamify things, and having a record made me be like, okay, now you've got to put it in more work. Let's get to bed at this time. Let's do this. Whereas now, when I'm just going by feel, I can sort of lie to myself. Right? Yeah. It's exactly like you said. I'll get to the next day. I'll have good intentions the morning of, but when I'm wide awake that night, I'm like, hey, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I don't have that Whoop to keep me accountable to say like, oh, you're in the red today, and that's because you didn't sleep enough. So same sort of draw cards for me.
Same for you, Paulie?
Yeah, all the same with the sleep thing. It was getting away from me at that time, and you had your Whoop, and I thought, well, I'm going to use this tool and, you know, embrace technologies just to give me some good feedback. So it was telling me what I already knew, right? But it also told me a little bit more that I didn't about, you know, the types of sleep that I was getting. And then I just use that feedback. You still have to go away and make the adjustments yourself.
Yeah.
But at least when I was making those adjustments, because I couldn't figure it out at the time, why did I've slept this many hours, but I woke up and I didn't feel rested. So it was like I needed some sort of feedback so that I could keep like changing something and you know, seeing what was working and what wasn't. But yeah, the whole idea was not to have it forever. It was to try to educate myself, bring the awareness to it, and then eventually kind of leave it. And sleep's not perfect still, but I've kind of got some little rules that help me just kind of slip back to what it was doing at the time. For me.
What were those rules? Care to share?
In bed by 9:30. But with the kid thing, like you said, regardless of whether I've got a late start or an early start at the gym, kids wake up at the same time.
Yeah.
So for me, it doesn't matter about rising time because that's set in my life.
Yes.
It's just about going to bed early. And yeah, that's pretty much it. In order for me to get to bed early, because that organizes the rest of my life. Yeah. Pretty much.
You nail that one thing.
Yeah, which is why if my recovery is bad, I just do the sleep thing and everything else goes well. Because you just, you know, you have to get all your work done at a certain time. You start getting more productive. You start cutting away shit. And everything gets a little better. You know, you have to prepare your food a little bit more, you know, the night before or on the weekend. Just kind of trickles down from there for me.
That's the first takeaway for the episode, guys. In bed by 9:30 and less Squid Game.
Oh, it's too funny.
It's a good point, man. Actually, on that, I find weekends lately of where I've been getting really stitched up. Because same thing, I still, somewhere in my mind, I'm like, I can sleep a little bit later on the weekend. I keep forgetting that this almost 1-year-old creature is like, I'm getting up between 6 and 7. And if I've stayed up till 11:30 the night before, which is like, you know, whatever, 90 minutes an hour long, I'm like, motherfucker's up again. How did I blow that? And then you come out of the weekend and you're more tired than when you went into it.
The worst one is when you decide, and even if you're aware of it, even if you are aware of it, and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to stay up a little later. And then the little guy's like, he doesn't know I got this card up my sleeve. I'm going to get up at 4:30 today. Double fucking. Because that's what happens. It always seems to be that one night you consciously blow it out a little, that they have the worst night's sleep ever. Yeah, it's mad. Thanks.
It's the best. Yeah, such a good call.
Sounds like I got a lot to look forward to.
Mate, all of it. But so the Whoop, yeah, I you know, if I look back to when I wore it, I think, yeah, my sleep was actually better. But then I think, well, what am I not doing now that I was doing when I had it? And it's really just about getting to bed on time.
Yep.
That one piece.
Non-negotiables.
I didn't really give a shit about any of the other features that it had, to be honest. It has all this other information. You know, sometimes you browse it and you're like, oh, that's fascinating, but really, you know.
I really liked the fact that like the color coding with like, okay, you're good to go, you're in optimal, you're in mid-range, you should maybe give it like a little bit of easier work today or like you're fucked. You're in the red. Cool
Yes.
down. Not that I ever paid attention to it, but I really like the fact that I had the information there and available to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I really found it was like I don't know, I like to look at it after jiu-jitsu and see how hectic the session was.
Yeah, that's another good one.
But it was like, I wasn't using that data to then guide, maybe I should take it a bit easier. All I wanted was the satisfaction of knowing I went super hard tonight.
It made me feel bad about all my strength training.
Because it doesn't show
Yeah,
up.
because you're like,
shit,
it's
does
like,
it?
oh yeah, you did a brisk walk.
Yeah.
And I'm like, far out. I feel like I'm going to die.
Like, I did 1,000 muscle ups.
At that time was when I was doing jiu-jitsu here at lunchtime. So I was looking at it and going, okay, heart rate is at this average for the last hour. And then I'd come down and do backflips for 40 minutes. And my heart rate was higher.
On the backflips.
Yeah. Yeah. And man, the spike is just crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting fact, all right? So my strength sessions were less intense than my juggling sessions. It would register, it would freaking register me doing juggling, but then I'd be like, I'm fine, I feel nothing. And then I'm freaking going and doing this hefty strength session where I feel like I'm about to pass out, and it's like, didn't even register.
There's surely that's got to be a huge downfall in
Yep.
how it's able to track your activity.
Recovery and whatnot.
Yeah, because to clarify why that happens, it's because it can only track in the moment of you doing the exercise your cardiovascular output. So if your heart rate isn't elevated, and generally when you're strength training, because you're taking long rest periods and stuff, your heart rate's not that elevated. It's more mechanical force, muscular force that's being produced. The Whoop thinks you're not doing much, but you're actually doing a shitload, and it's having a taxing effect on your nervous system, but it's hard for the Whoop to pick that up.
Yeah.
We should do public speaking classes here at the gym with little cardio trackers. Just everyone.
Oh, just so you can see.
Yeah.
Where you get the TV and everyone's linked up to it. Like they
yeah,
have at
that's
those-
right.
those
Yeah, have one of
gyms.
those ones
Yeah.
across your chest.
Oh, he's shitting himself right now.
That's right. Exactly. We can see it. Look, it's breaking. He's breaking.
Yeah.
That's so
I think his
good.
eyeball's about to pop. So tell me, let's go to the ice bath piece. So this was, obviously a recovery measure, but talk to me like what the desire, like why the drive to get it,
Yeah.
and how you've been using it.
So I fell into a little bit of the Wim Hof hole over the lockdown. I read his book on the Iceman method, and I really enjoyed it. I started taking some cold showers, which I'd messed around with a little bit before. I'd actually done Wim Hof with Joey and his friends in Bali at a retreat, and I really enjoyed that as well. But I wanted to learn a little bit more about it myself. So during the lockdown, I started practicing cold water exposure with Ocean and getting it that way. And I'm like, man, this is having some real good payoff for me. I'm getting some better sleeps. I'm feeling good. I'd love to introduce this as a concept to my people, to my tribe. So I came to Paulie with the idea, and I'm like, hey, can we do this? And then I told him we can also put beer in it for the Christmas party. And he said, yeah, let's do it.
That's mad.
Yeah.
And so what's the, most people would have heard of Wim Hof, but what is the basic idea behind it being good for you?
Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff that's debatable and a bunch of stuff that's proven as well. So it depends on what you want to believe and how much research you put into it yourself.
I want to believe.
I want to believe. But yeah, it's like proven it has a really good effect on muscle soreness is one of the best ones. So for recovery, because it helps with inflammation, what scientifically has been proven is that it restricts the blood flow to inflamed muscles, which helps them deal with inflammation. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so if you're doing heavy sessions or if you're performing at an elite level and you're doing big sessions every day, if you do have an ice bath afterwards, it is going to prep you to be better prepared to perform again the next day. It also helps with your fight or flight, right? So if you're getting cold exposure to water, your body's going to go into shock, and you're learning how to deal with that shock, which can help you have a better understanding of your body when you're in a situation that you haven't put yourself in. It's said that it can help with weight loss. I'm not 100% sold on that one. It does, it has been proven to some extent, but it hasn't had enough research in it for me to be like, yeah, it definitely does this. And it also is said to help with anxiety and depression, which I actually have found a little bit of as well myself.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Any idea what that link is?
For me, it's probably more around the whole method with the Wim Hof stuff. It's the breathing and then the ice exposure. because I find that the breathing for me is a little bit of a hack to get into a meditative state, right? Whereas if I'm maybe doing a meditation or something like that, it might take me a fair amount of time to get into that meditative state. With the breath, it sort of fast tracks me there. And then when I go into the cold water exposure as well and have that, my body gets all these endorphins pumping into it. It gets into this fight or flight, and I'm learning to deal with it. Any other stress I go through that day just doesn't seem to have as big of an effect on me.
Yeah, okay. So it kind of chills you out.
Yeah. It's sort of like, if I can do this, and like some days I really don't want to do it, everything else will be pretty easy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think all those benefits are pretty, there's a lot of stuff that it's touted to do, but I think at the very base level, it's like it helps you recover better.
Yep.
It definitely like lifts your mental state, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're like, I don't know, you go through this thing, it's a pretty kind of stressful sort of experience, but stress is not always a bad thing. You come out of it and you kind of, I don't know, there's like you survive sort of vibe.
Especially if you're doing it with a group of people, right? Because the energy that goes through the group and the sort of like effect you get from being in this situation with another person, even if it's just one other person, you come out of it and you're like all happy and you really appreciate the other person for doing it with you. It's got a real good effect to it.
Yeah. Paulie, tell me about your experience with the ice bath. You ran from it. You ducked it for so many years.
I didn't actually.
You fucking ducked it.
If you go back into the records, I hadn't done it, and I didn't like the idea of doing it. It was the cold showers mainly in the morning that I was ducking. I did go in the bath, but I haven't been in it. Yeah, a couple times. But it wasn't the coldest. I haven't done the 2 degrees. -2. Sorry.
-2.
I did like 0. Yeah. And then before that was 5. So like, 4 minutes at 5 or whatever it was. And then
can you tell the difference between like 0 and -2?
I could tell a huge difference between the 5 and 0, because I did kind of over 4 minutes and got out with a head duck for that first one. And the second time I went in, I lasted about 45 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And my hands were stinging a bit. And what happened? Did I do the breathing before that? Something was different in the prep. And anyway,
It's because you didn't have Joe Taylor with you the second time.
I was on my own. Yeah, the first time, it was good because I was literally just looking at her face, and that was kind of calming me down. She was super fucking chill. Jesus. She stayed in for like 8 minutes that first time.
Oh, wow.
And, I did a couple of times. Yeah, I did enjoy it a lot. And I felt great afterwards. I wasn't really debating that wouldn't happen. It was great, like going for a really cold swim. It's kind of like, and I don't do it regularly. But it's kind of like, I think it was like a workout that you do. It's stress to the body. And you said as a group, it's really cool working out together, or it's really cool going for like hill sprints together. It's just like a bit of stress that's kind of can be done. It's easier because it's less mechanical on the joints, but it's like something that you can go through, but it's also primal because of that kind of that aspect of nature that is cold exposure.
Yep.
So it's different as well, but it's very similar to like training in a little concentrated way. You prep for it and then you go through it all together and you're like, fuck, we finished that workout. And that collective feel when you're doing it together is really cool. Yeah. But yeah, God, it elevates you, like going for a cold water swim first thing in the morning. You're just like buzzing. And I love the immersive aspect of it because you get cold water swim, like every cell in your body when you more so than a shower. Yeah. Because a shower doesn't sit around all of the surfaces of your body. It's just like boom, and you're just fucking electrified, right?
Yeah.
When you come out and you're shaking or swinging your limbs, you're just like, feel good.
And you look shredded.
You do.
Yeah. It makes your skin all nice and tight.
Feels like that's when we do the photo shoot.
Yeah, exactly. If you've ever seen the gym's Insta, me and Ty coming out of it, bright red, but looking aesthetic as fuck.
Give yourself a rap.
Did I tell you guys about the time I met Wim Hof at Clovelly Beach?
No.
I went down there. It was it was coincidentally enough, it was on a Saturday, and that afternoon I was coming down to our old gym to do the first workshop with Josh and Casey Cordoba.
Oh, dude, what a coincidence.
Yeah, so I was going to be having an ice bath and doing the Wim Hof method that afternoon. and I went down to Clovelly in the morning. I think I was on my way to work, and I jumped in the water and I was swimming along. Clovelly's kind of like a beach here in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. But it's got like this kind of little inlet that's like got concrete walls and a concrete sort of, platform sort of thing. So yeah, it's kind of man-made. But I'm swimming in there, and before I jumped in, I saw a guy in the water. You can just kind of see people's head bobbing up and down from the water, and I was like, man, that guy looks like Wim Hof. Anyway, I jumped in, and that guy and the couple guys he were with had gotten out, and they were standing up on the concrete. And I looked up, and I'm like, holy shit, it is Wim Hof. I'm sure of it. And he was just there with a couple of dudes, and they just had a dip. So I did my thing, had a little swim. And then I got out kind of near them because I wanted to suss him out. And I walked past and I kind of caught his eye, and he kind of caught, he looked back and he smiled. And I was like, Wim? And it's like, I don't know, it must have been about 7 a.m. So it's pretty quiet. It's kind of early. It wasn't summer. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was autumn or winter. So it was sort of a bit dark, and it's a bit sort of churchy down there. Like everyone's just kind of doing their swimming. No one's really talking. And I was like, Wim? And he was like, yeah, man, hey, how you doing, man? and fully lit up. And I was like, holy shit. And then he was like, hey, what's going on, man? And I was like, oh, man, you wouldn't believe it. Like, I'm actually going to learn your method this afternoon from a couple people that studied your course, and we're doing ice bars. And he was like, oh, man, that's great. Hey, that's great. And he just went into this thing. He's like, we're going to cure cancer. And just started riffing on the benefits of ice. And I was like, man, this guy's passionate.
Yeah, he definitely believes it.
Fucking A, he believes it. And he hit me like a fucking freight train. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. And I didn't want to take up too much of his time and, whatever. So anyway, I said, mate, lovely to meet you. And, I think we had a hug. And then I went off, and I was just kind of sitting by myself, chilling out for a bit. And then at a point, I started doing some handstands. And again, it had gotten kind of churchy, and the energy had settled in the area. And I'm doing my handstands. And then Wim starts yelling out, hey, man, that's great. Beautiful handstand, man. Pointing at me, kind of like putting it, and everyone's like, what the fuck's going on over here? He was just like a bull in a china shop.
That's so good.
Yeah, absolutely lovely guy.
That's heaps cool. Because, you see these people, but you don't know what they're really like.
Yeah.
So that's real cool.
He's a special dude.
Sounded like it was like meeting Ice Man was like diving into a ice bath.
Exactly. Yeah, every cell of your body's like,
that's funny.
But no, it was cool. I appreciate it. I like the ice bath piece.
Yeah.
I guess I've had a few exposures to it, so with this one here, I've not been super motivated to do it a bunch because it's not new to me.
Yep.
But with that time I jumped in when you took me through it, I really liked it and keen to do it again.
Hell yeah.
I'm a big fan of the cold showers.
Yeah, I think so one thing I wanted to make clear, because we mentioned that at the moment ours is set to -2. You don't need to take it that cold if you're getting into it. You actually can go into up to 15 degree all the way down to as cold as you want and still get all the positive effects. We've just got it down to that level at the moment, more for mental fortitude than the physical at the moment anyway.
Yeah, right. Is there a limit to what you can jump into?
I guess if it's a block of ice, you can't really get into it. But apart from that, right?
Anything else you can?
Yeah, it's just how long you can deal with it. I've said, once you get to there's a point where the body can't tell the difference. It's just how long can you deal with it before the body goes into shock or hypothermia. And if it's 2 or 3 minutes exposure, you're pretty okay.
I watched a mate of mine on Instagram the other day. I think his name's Jonas. He's a guy I met at the first movement camp. He was very much into the movement stuff. I think he's from Sweden, and he was out on a frozen lake, and he has they got a little deck or a little wharf, I suppose, and then little ladders that go off the edge of it. And he's hanging off the edge of the ladder, and he jumps up and down on the ice just to check that it's solid, it's frozen solid, the lake. And then he takes a Recipro saw,
yeah,
and he cuts out this circle, and then he uses a tool, picks up the piece of ice, and it's that thick.
That thick.
Yeah, pulls it out, shifts it to the side, and then strips off and just lowers himself into it. I'm like, man, that's so fucking ballsy.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah, that for me, that's so scary because you're thinking about what's beneath.
Yeah.
That layer of ice. And just if something happened to you and you got, I don't know, you passed out or some shit, it's over.
Yeah, especially if he's doing it by himself, right? And there's no one else there, and he just goes under, and then he can't find the hole again, and
done. It's terrifying, right?
That's like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like a nightmare. But surely he worked up to that, I suppose. Hey.
Well, yeah, I mean, he grew up there. You know, it's in his thing, and he's probably been doing it since he was a kid.
If you read Wim, that's pretty much how he started. Ice Lake, same thing. So, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, right. So, you were doing the ice bars here. You run them a couple times a week.
Yep.
Is that still going on?
Once a week now.
Right.
I found that I was getting okay numbers during the week, but if I condense it to one day, we get a bigger group on that day. And people get more enjoyment out of it, doing it with a few people as well. And I'll jump in with with whoever's the odd number on the day if there is one, or do a solo by myself at the end of it.
People still been as motivated, or are most people giving it a try now? And
The diehards are the diehards, and then you get a couple floaters every couple of weeks or so. Like people come and try it, do a week or two, don't come for a little while, come back. But there's a few people who are there every Saturday.
Yeah, okay.
Who are they?
Emma, Brooke, Camilo, Nando, but he's lost the consistency a little bit recently. Sammy, me, Jono, I think is going to be one now that he's done it once.
Andrews?
Yeah,
Good man.
He's right into it now. But yeah, those are probably the regulars.
That's a good crew.
Yeah.
You're going to keep it at -2?
No. I'll probably make it a little bit warmer and then get a few people coming in and then bring it back down again, and we just play with it.
Yeah.
See what people can handle. I might do cycles, right? Like we do with our programming. Maybe I'll keep it at like 5 degrees for 3 weeks and then bring it a little bit lower and a little bit lower. And just as people get into it, they can sort of build up a resistance to it.
Tell me on the recovery piece, is there anything else that you guys do kind of regularly or semi-regularly, with that in mind, that you're trying to kind of get the best out of your training returns?
I'll review my diet every now and again as well. If as an example, the last couple of weeks, I found that I was under eating without realizing it. If I'm training in high volumes, it tends to be the case. I won't adjust my diet when I start a new phase of exercise to start. And then I'll be like, okay, why am I feeling off in this session? And if my sleep's in check, everything else is in check, that tends to be maybe the next factor there. Am I eating enough? Am I getting carbs? Am I getting a good source of protein? I've got enough fat in my diet, all those sorts of things.
And so is that you have a list of questions you ask yourself, or like how do you do
It's
the
more
review?
it's more like a feel now. Like back in the day, I've done tracking and I've done okay, I'll ask myself questions, but now it's more like if I find that a session isn't as successful, I'll take mental note of what the aspects of that could have been. The first for me is usually sleep. I'm like, am I fatigued? Have I slept enough? Then it's hydration and food. And then after that, usually it's like, well, what mental state am I in at the moment? Is my mindset having an effect on it?
Right. That's quite a good thing to do.
Yeah.
I should probably, I've spoken about it before. I tend to go through cycles with my nutrition, and that's usually cycles of being super aware of what I'm doing and being very intentional, and then cycles of not really giving a shit and being less intentional until I get sick of that and decide I got to get intentional again. And it kind of works, but I do think that having some kind of process like that to check in is beneficial.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same for me. It's just that I do it more subconsciously now, right? Like if something's feeling off, that's the sort of things I run through.
Yeah. Paulie, what about you?
Yeah, same thing. Funny you mentioned that because, mine's the same. My food is fairly consistent because I have my mother-in-law who does most of the cooking in the house. I do the least amount of cooking in the house, if at all. So the food there is pretty good all the time. But what I have found is it's just my macro spread, and it's all intuitive for me. It's like I have to just be aware. In this last phase of training, also the under eating was a thing, and this is intuitively. It was basically protein because I don't get enough of it if I don't look for it or buy it to put it into the fridge and stuff and have it in the cooking cycles, or supplement where necessary. But I'll have just minor adjustments, but the food is pretty consistent overall for that. But I was getting that feeling where I wasn't eating enough, basically. I was kind of doing a really hard phase. The last one for me, it was really difficult. And there was a couple of weeks in the middle there where I struggled. I was just grinding through the session. And it was just a realization of what I'd eaten in the last 24 to 48 hours. And then I kind of looked at the next week and I was like, okay, shit, I'm actually not eating enough of the base macros right now. Because often you're just like, whatever, you're trying to not eat too much, aren't you? Often it's like, well, actually, this is fucking intensity-wise, or how hard this phase is for me is actually really hard.
Yeah.
So it was like, recognize that and fuel for it.
I got it. I personally, that it doesn't work like that for me, where it's like I trying to eat less. Like I'm usually like, oh no,
Trying to
I
eat.
don't. Yeah, I should be eating more than my appetite naturally tells me to.
Yeah, right.
Just to you know,
Yeah.
because but I do think for a lot of folks, probably what you're saying is more common,
Yeah.
or it's like you're trying to just limit your intake a little bit.
Yeah. I had a bit of a thing where I'd come home late because a few nights late at the gym. And because I come home late, I don't want to eat because I lose my appetite by that time of the night because I'm going to go to bed in 45 minutes. And so I was like barely eating at that time because I wasn't hungry.
Yeah,
And that was where it kind of stitched me up.
you're kind of losing a meal each day.
Yeah, well, I was losing 500 calories or something a day, maybe.
Yeah.
So, so the solution there was that I had more food and I ate heavier in the afternoon, so I didn't have to do that later. But yeah, that was just kind of what happened there. That's what I thought had happened, where I was losing some weekly calories.
Smart. Yeah, I've always grappled with that doing jiu-jitsu, where it's like I don't want to have dinner when I go home. It's so late.
Yeah.
But I'm also like, in the afternoon, I don't feel like having a meal. Like I do lunch, and I don't mind doing a snack after that, but I don't want to do another meal like in anticipation of then going to jiu-jitsu. And
Yeah, the problem with the eating late for me was that the Whoop was telling me it wasn't pairing up with my sleep quality.
right, it's fucking you up.
Yeah, so I figured all that out before with the Whoop, and that's the realization. I also have to live with that because that is also the hours in my modern life. So knowing it helps though. You can't always eat in the afternoon before you coach classes at 5:15 because you just don't feel like eating. It's too close to.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can sort it out. But just being aware of it helps.
Man, I remember when I used to do the online training with Ito, and I would coach evenings and mornings, but I remember like I'd be coaching evenings and I would like train twice a day, you know, what you're saying, like 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours per session. And then would I have breakfast? I guess I would have breakfast, and then I would have lunch, and lunch would be whatever. And then I wouldn't eat anything else for the whole day. So I'd kind of have 2 meals and then maybe have a protein shake after my second training session, and then like a dinner when I got home. And I was grossly under eating for, I don't know, fucking a year or two. I was super shredded.
Yeah.
But like I look back, I'm like, man, I was like struggling.
I reckon that most people who do that style of training, and especially if you're a coach as well, are, right? Because a lot of the time I'll even have the intention to eat breakfast, but my training session will go a bit longer, and then I'm coaching the next class, and then I finish coaching, and it's like, oh, well, shit, it's 12. Okay.
Go do lunch.
Time to eat lunch. And
That's
then you
wild,
eat lunch.
isn't
You're
it?
not going to eat lunch with breakfast because it's too much food to eat in one session.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real stitch up that. I think the thing there, like you were saying, like say leading into the evening when you know you got to coach that night, it crushes your appetite because your body's getting prepared for the big performance, which is running fucking 3 groups of people through 3 awesome training sessions. Like you're like, this is, you know, and there's the stress hormones that come with that, the rising cortisol and whatever, which is just you getting ready for activity, and that suppresses appetite.
Not to mention, usually you don't want to feel heavy as well, right? Like I don't like to eat too often pre-session, at least my first morning session. I like to eat after I've trained because I don't want to feel like bloated or a little bit off because I'm digesting food at the same time that I'm trying to start moving.
Yeah, it's not ideal. But my counter to that would be if you were like chilling and relaxed and like, oh, I'm actually kind of hungry, I would rather eat and then be in the session with a full belly.
Yeah.
Because I will be satisfied. But if I'm in that state where I'm like getting ready to do some shit and I'm trying to force food down, then it sits in my gut and I'm like, man, I'm not digesting this food well. And it's like, it's a bunch of things.
Yep.
And that's, I mean, I know for jiu-jitsu people, that's a huge issue with training in the evening as well, because when you finish the session, you're super adrenalized and you don't have an appetite. And so then it's like, well, you can't eat properly, and then you got to go to bed, and then you're up in the morning, and again, you're skipping meals. And
Yep.
yeah, it's a real tricky one. I guess, for anyone that's kind of not familiar with it, that's this nervous system fight or flight versus
Yep.
parasympathetic, like rest and digest state. And when you're in that fight or flight, it's just, you don't want to eat. It's the furthest thing from your mind. Gents, good talk.
Very good talk.
Any closing points on the recovery piece?
I think that it's important to realize that you can know all the rules around recovery, because, I like to think that we know a fair amount of it, but it's still important to review what's going on in your life every now and again, right? And you need to make exceptions where you can, but always try and come back to a baseline.
I like that. It's a good takeaway. Paulo?
It's just something that we didn't really touch on, but I was thinking the whole time was stress on the body can come in many different forms, and the body often doesn't know, from what I hear, what that stress is. So if you are under recovered, besides the sleep thing and the better food thing, fucking chill out more type of thing is what I'm kind of trying to do. When I'm not training, I need to just try and chill out more and basically be like Marco more, a little bit, like a bit more of a house cat. And that's what I try to do. So I don't try to like overload myself with other stuff. Like when I'm with the kids and stuff, I'm just trying to chill. So, just thought that I'd add that one on, is just chill out and do relaxing activities more if you're training hard in the in-between times.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
It's a really good one. That's something I think I've come to realize this year too. I used to do a lot of like things on the weekends, like go rock climbing, go on hikes and all that sort of stuff. But it's definitely more of like, all right, I'm just going to play video games today, or I'm just going to watch TV on the weekends. It makes a difference.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, if you were working through the week and having a pretty sedentary week, then an active weekend's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But now you got a hectic week. You want that time to chill.
Yep.
Movies. I remember a classic recovery tip from a young Paul Fotofili. When we're in the film industry, Paul's like, I'm like, oh, no, I usually like go to bed at this time. Where Paul's like, no, I don't. I usually put movies on, but like, I believe that like when you're watching movies, it's kind of like just as good as sleeping anyway. So it counts towards sleep hours. And I was like, holy shit, does it? He's like, yeah, I think so. You remember that?
Vaguely, but yeah, it's probably something I said.
Think back to that was when we were in Auckland working on the Lion Witch.
Yeah, right.
And you were like, you had movies on your computer. And like, I don't think I had a computer at the time.
I still had the terrible sleep hygiene back then.
Yeah.
It was probably like one eye open on my back with it playing on my laptop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look back at that. We were just underslept that whole period of our lives. Film industry, because you're working so like just. At least now we're in the health industry where the information is kind of being exchanged more often. No one's talking about getting enough sleep in the film industry.
Nah, it's terrible. It's terrible.
Glad we made that change. Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
Yep. It was
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, good chat.
Good chat.
Where can people find you? Go on, give yourselves a plug.
We are online at junglebrothers.com, or you can hit us on IG at Jungle Brothers Movement.
Nice.
Yes. Give us a follow. Come down for an ice bath, even if you're not a member with us. If you want to come and try it on a Saturday, we do it every Saturday at 9 a.m. Happy for you to come and do a trial class and then come train with us afterwards.
That's an irresistible combo right there.
Yeah.
I like it. What's your personal accounts? Where can people find that at?
The Butcher Shop at Instagram as well.
Cool.
At JB Pauly. You know what it is.
People know it. Awesome.
They know it.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Please share it with a friend if you did. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Joey.
Out.